The message appeared on Admiral James Reed's screen at exactly midnight Earth Standard Time. He was alone in his office aboard the orbital command station Earth's Shield, looking out at the blue planet below. The message was simple, just 3 words and a set of coordinates. "They're coming. 342-897-1123. Reed's weathered face showed no emotion as he read the message again. He had been waiting for this moment for the past 30 years of his life. Running his hand through his gray hair, he pressed a button on his desk. "Get me the Defense Council. Priority Alpha," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of what was coming. Within minutes, 5 holograms appeared in his office. They were the most powerful people in the solar system. The Defense Council of Earth. Each of them knew what this midnight call meant. "It's time," Reed said simply. "Our deep space monitors just picked up the signal we've been waiting for. The Empire's scouts have detected our quantum broadcasts, just as we planned." General Mark White, head of the Mars Defense Force, leaned forward in his hologram. "How long do we have?" "Based on the coordinates, their diplomatic vessel will arrive at the edge of our system in approximately 72 hours, Reed replied. He touched a control, and a 3D map of the solar system appeared between them. Red dots showed the positions of Earth's hidden fleets, thousands of warships that had been built in secret over the past 2 centuries. 200 years of preparation, said Dr. Anna Lee, head of research and development. Every child born in the last 2 centuries has been raised knowing this day would come. Every advance in technology, every mining operation, every colony we built, all of it was for this moment. Reed nodded. He remembered learning about the Empire in school, how their ancestors had intercepted the first transmission showing what the Empire did to lesser species, how they enslaved whole civilizations, stripped planets of resources, and called it uplifting primitive races. Begin Operation Dark Shield, Reed commanded. Throughout the solar system, massive orbital platforms that had been disguised as debris fields began to power up. Around Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, hidden shipyards revealed themselves as their cloaking fields dropped. "All colonial forces are reporting ready," said Colonel Pete Brown, his hologram flickering slightly from his base on Europa. "The Jupiter fleet is moving into position." Reed walked to the window, watching as Earth's orbital defense rings became visible for the first time in 50 years. They had hidden their true strength for so long, letting the Empire's scouts see only what they wanted them to see, a primitive civilization just beginning to explore their own solar system. "Send word to our agents in the Empire," Reed ordered. "Tell them to stand ready but maintain their cover. We need their intelligence now more than ever." The Defense Council members nodded. For generations, they had been sending their best and brightest to infiltrate the Empire, using advanced genetic modifications to pass as various alien species. These deep cover agents had risen to positions of power throughout the Empire's vast territory. "What about the civilian population?" asked Dr. Lee. "Inform them according to the prepared protocols," Reed answered. "They've all been trained for this since childhood. There will be no panic, no chaos, just readiness." As the holograms winked out, Reed looked at a photo on his desk. It showed him as a young cadet, standing with his father, who had also been an admiral. His father's last words echoed in his mind. "Remember, son, we're not building this fleet for revenge. We're building it because someone has to stop them. Someone has to protect those who can't protect themselves." Reed straightened his uniform and looked once more at the message on his screen. In 72 hours, the Empire would arrive, expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they would find humanity waiting, armed with technologies the Empire couldn't imagine, ready to end their reign of tyranny. The greatest act of deception in human history was about to pay off. The Empire thought they were coming to conquer Earth. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap 2 centuries in the making. Ambassador Val of House Bright stood proudly on the bridge of the Imperial diplomatic vessel, Star's Grace. His tall, silver-skinned form reflected the soft lights of the ship's controls as he watched the primitive solar system grow larger on the main screen. This would be an easy conquest, just another primitive species to add to the Empire's glory. "My lord," the ship's captain said, "we're detecting unusual energy readings from the system's outer planets." Val waved his hand dismissively. "Probably their primitive attempts at solar power collection. Our scouts reported they had only reached their system's larger planets." The Star's Grace led a small fleet of 5 ships, more than enough to impress a pre-FTL civilization. As they passed the orbit of Neptune, the first sign that something was wrong appeared. "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer shouted. "Massive ships decloaking around Jupiter's moons." Val rushed to the viewport. His 4 eyes widened in shock as he saw hundreds of warships appearing out of nowhere. They were sleek, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each one was larger than his diplomatic fleet's ships combined. "Impossible," he whispered. The scouts reported. "Imperial vessel Star's Grace." A calm human voice interrupted over their communications system. "This is Admiral James Reed of Earth's United Defense Force. You have entered protected space. Hold your position." Val's hands trembled as more ships appeared. Around Saturn's rings, massive battle stations emerged from what they had thought were just chunks of ice. Near Mars, shipyards larger than anything in the Empire's core worlds shimmered into view. "Send the signal," Val ordered quickly. "Call for the battle fleet. These primitives are hostile." The communications officer tried frantically to send the message, but nothing happened. "My lord, our quantum transmitters are being blocked by some kind of technology we've never seen before." A hologram appeared on their bridge, a human male in a dark uniform. Admiral Reed looked at them, not with fear or awe, but with calm certainty. "Ambassador Val," Reed said, "we've been expecting you. For 200 years, to be exact." Val's pride turned to cold fear. 200 years. That's impossible. "Our scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Reed finished. "We've known about the Empire since you conquered the bright star system 2 centuries ago. We chose to prepare rather than reveal ourselves." Around the Imperial ships, more human vessels appeared, simply blinking into existence using technology that defied the Empire's understanding of physics. They hadn't used jump points or warp gates. They had simply appeared. "Your ship will be escorted to Earth," Reed continued. "There you'll learn exactly who you're dealing with. Any hostile action will be met with immediate response. The choice is yours, Ambassador." Val looked at his sensor displays in growing horror. The humans had weapons arrays aimed at his ships from every angle. Their technology was nothing like the primitive rockets and orbital stations the scouts had reported. These ships were centuries beyond what should have been possible for such a young species. "How?" Val asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you hide all of this?" Reed's hologram smiled slightly. "Did you really think you were the first advanced civilization to discover Earth? We learned long ago that it's better to be underestimated. Your empire isn't the first to think us primitive, Ambassador, but you might be the last." As Val's ships were escorted toward Earth, he saw more wonders that shattered his worldview. The moon had been hollowed out into a massive shipyard. Mars was covered in sprawling cities hidden under optical camouflage. Even the asteroid belt was filled with hidden stations and fleet bases. The Empire had come expecting to find primitives begging to join their civilization. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous, a human race that had spent generations preparing for this very moment. And as Val watched Earth grow larger in his viewport, he realized with growing dread that this was only the beginning. The meeting room inside Earth's shield station was designed to impress. Its walls showed real-time views of space, and in the center stood a massive holographic display. Ambassador Val sat uncomfortably in a chair that was clearly built for humans, his silver skin reflecting the blue glow of Earth visible through the window. Admiral Reed entered the room, carrying an old, worn book. "This," he said, placing it on the table, "is where it all began." "A primitive paper record?" Val asked. trying to hide his confusion. Reed opened the book carefully. This is the personal diary of Dr. Robert Young, dated 2124. 201 years ago, he detected your Empire's transmissions about the conquest of the bright star system. The holographic display came to life, showing ancient human recordings. Val watched as grainy images played, showing humans gathered around old computer screens, listening to Imperial transmissions. We were already reaching for the stars, Reed continued. But Dr. Young's discovery changed everything. We learned how your Empire treats primitive species. We saw what happened to civilizations that weren't ready when you found them. The display showed more images: Imperial ships destroying cities on distant worlds, enslaved alien species working in mines, whole planets stripped of resources. Val shifted uncomfortably. These are classified Imperial records, he protested. How did you? Let me introduce you to someone, Reed interrupted. A door opened, and a tall Imperial official walked in. Val jumped to his feet in shock. High Commander Bright. He gasped, recognizing one of the Empire's most trusted military leaders. The Imperial commander's appearance flickered, then disappeared, replaced by a human woman in a military uniform. Lieutenant Susan Black, she corrected. Deep cover operative, Earth intelligence. Reed smiled grimly. We've had agents in your Empire for over a century. Genetic modification, advanced holographic disguises, quantum personality overlays. We developed whatever we needed to hide in plain sight. Val sank back into his chair as the truth hit him. How many? Thousands, Lieutenant Black replied. In every level of Imperial society. Military commanders, trade officials, even members of the noble houses. We needed to understand you completely. The holographic display showed new images: massive underground cities being built on Earth, shipyards constructed in dimensional pockets, weapons being tested in secret facilities. While your scouts saw what they expected to see, a primitive world taking its first steps into space, we were building all of this, Reed explained. Every child was taught two histories: the public one and the truth. Every advancement we made was hidden behind a facade of primitive technology. But why? Val asked. Why not just reveal yourselves? The Empire would have welcomed an advanced species. Reed's face hardened. Would you? Like you welcomed the species of the bright star system, or the crystal worlds. We saw what your Empire does to potential rivals. So we chose to wait, to prepare, to become strong enough that when we finally revealed ourselves, you couldn't simply crush us. Lieutenant Black touched a control, and the display showed current images of Earth's forces, the massive fleets, the dimensional tech, the quantum weapons. Everything we built was designed to counter Imperial technology. We studied your weaknesses, your tactical doctrines, your strategic thinking. The warning message, Val realized suddenly. It came from one of your agents. Reed nodded. The time had come. Your Empire was planning to discover Earth within the next year anyway. We simply chose the moment of revelation ourselves. The room fell silent as Val absorbed the implications. Humanity hadn't just hidden their advancement. They had orchestrated every detail of this moment, playing a game of deception that spanned generations. What happens now? Val asked quietly. Reed's expression was solemn. Now, Ambassador, you carry a message back to your Empire. Humanity is not joining your civilization. We are not submitting to your authority. Instead, we're going to show you a better way, or end your tyranny completely. The choice will be yours. The Imperial battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 10,000 warships, the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in 50 years, filled the void with their gleaming hulls. At their center, the massive dreadnought Imperial Will carried the Empire's greatest admiral, Lord Max, who had never lost a battle in his 300-year career. These humans dared to threaten the Empire. Lord Max stood on his command deck, watching tactical displays show the human fleet gathered near Earth. They have barely 5,000 ships. This will be over quickly. On the bridge of his flagship, Righteous Fury, Admiral Reed watched the Imperial fleet's arrival with calm eyes. The massive human vessel hung in space, its dark hull seeming to swallow nearby starlight. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, each person knowing their role in the plan they had practiced countless times. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. "Quantum systems are charged. The Empire's fleet is exactly where we predicted they would emerge." Reed nodded. They always followed the same tactical doctrine. 2 centuries of observation confirmed that. "Send the signal. Operation Checkmate begins now." The Imperial fleet moved forward in their standard attack formation, spreading out to surround the human forces. Lord Max smiled as he watched his fleet take position. Such a primitive formation they hold. They cluster their ships like frightened animals. Suddenly, his tactical officer shouted in alarm, "My lord, quantum disturbances detected throughout our formation." Before Lord Max could respond, the space between his ships lit up with brilliant flashes. Human vessels simply appeared inside his carefully arranged formation, their quantum tunneling technology allowing them to bypass normal space entirely. The trap was sprung. "All ships, open fire," Reed commanded. The human vessels, now mixed among the Imperial ships, launched their attack. But instead of normal weapons, waves of quantum energy pulsed out from their ships. Imperial shields, designed to stop physical weapons and energy beams, did nothing against attacks that seemed to ignore the normal laws of physics. Impossible. Lord Max watched in horror as his ship's systems began to fail. The quantum pulses weren't destroying his vessels. They were shutting them down, bypassing their defenses as if they weren't even there. "Return fire. Launch all fighters." But the human ships were already moving, their drives allowing them to shift position instantly, appearing and disappearing throughout his formation. Imperial weapons found only empty space where human vessels had been microseconds before. "Admiral," Reed's communications officer called out, "Imperial ships are trying to retreat. Their jump drives are powering up." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Activate the quantum lock." Across the battlefield, human ships projected a field that trapped the Imperial vessels in normal space. Their jump drives, trying to tear holes in space to escape, found themselves unable to break free of normal physics. Lord Max watched helplessly as more of his ships went dark, their systems shut down by weapons his civilization had never imagined possible. "How?" he demanded. "How can they have technology this advanced?" The answer came as Reed's voice echoed across all Imperial communications channels. "We had 2 centuries to prepare, Admiral. 2 centuries to develop counters to every weapon, every tactic, every strategy your empire has ever used. You're not fighting a primitive species today. You're fighting an enemy that knows you better than you know yourself." Within an hour, it was over. 9,000 Imperial ships floated powerless in space, their crews alive but helpless. The remaining 1,000 had surrendered after watching their flagship, the Imperial Will, go dark with a single shot from Reed's vessel. As Reed looked out at the disabled Imperial fleet, he thought about all the generations of humans who had worked and waited for this moment. "Send word to Earth Command," he ordered. "Phase 1 is complete. Tell the hidden colonies it's time for Phase 2. The real war was just beginning." Commander Maria West stood at the center of Haven Colony's control room, deep within a dimensional pocket near the Empire's capital world. For 50 years, this massive human settlement had existed literally next door to the Empire's seat of power, hidden in a fold of space they couldn't detect. "All colonies report ready, Commander," her operations officer announced. "The Empire's fleet has been defeated at Sol. It's our turn now." Maria took a deep breath. "Send the signal to all hidden colonies. Operation Emergence begins now." Across Imperial space, something impossible began to happen. On hundreds of worlds, massive human installations simply appeared. They emerged from dimensional pockets that had concealed them for decades, revealing cities, shipyards, and military bases that had been built right under the Empire's nose. In orbit around the Empire's richest mining world, the human colony Deep Forge appeared. Its massive shipyards had been building vessels for 30 years, hidden in a space between spaces. Governor Till of the mining world stared in shock as human warships emerged from the massive facility, their weapons already charged. "Attention Imperial forces," Maria's voice broadcast across all channels. "This is Commander West of the Earth Defense Force. Your orbital defenses are now surrounded. Surrender, and no harm will come to your civilian population." The Empire's response was predictable. They launched everything they had. But the humans had spent years studying every defense system, every weapon emplacement, every tactical response. The battle was over in minutes. Similar scenes played out across Imperial space. The colony Storm Haven appeared in the heart of a nebula that housed the Empire's largest fuel refineries. Thunderpoint emerged from its dimensional hiding place near the Empire's primary shipyards. Each colony was a self-contained fortress, built and supplied in absolute secrecy. In the Imperial Palace, emergency reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The High Council gathered in panic as they realized the true scale of human infiltration. Their maps showed hundreds of human strongholds appearing simultaneously, each positioned at a critical strategic location. How did they build all this? One council member demanded. "Our sensors would have detected construction on this scale." The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior clerk stood up, his form flickering as his holographic disguise failed. The human agent smiled as Imperial guards rushed forward. "We didn't build in your space," he explained calmly. "We built in pocket dimensions, in spaces between spaces. Your sensors can't detect what exists outside normal spacetime." Commander West watched from Haven Colony as reports of surrenders came in from across Imperial space. The human colonies had been positioned perfectly, each one ready to strike at vital Imperial infrastructure. 50 years of construction, all hidden by technology the Empire hadn't even dreamed was possible. "Commander," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Reed." Reed's hologram appeared in the control room. "Well done, Commander. The Empire's forces are in chaos. Their primary fleets are trapped in Sol system, and now their core worlds are surrounded. Phase 2 is proceeding exactly as planned." Maria nodded. "The colonial forces are securing critical infrastructure now, sir. No civilian casualties reported. Most Imperial forces are surrendering without a fight." "Good. Maintain position and prepare for Phase 3. Our deep cover agents are about to make their final moves." As the hologram faded, Maria looked out at the Imperial capital world visible through Haven Colony's windows. The massive city planet glittered with lights, its citizens still unaware that their civilization's greatest defeat had been planned and prepared for generations. "Send word to all colonies," she ordered. "Begin humanitarian operations for the civilian populations. Show them that humanity isn't here for revenge. We're here to build something better." The Empire was about to learn that humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for peace as well. Lieutenant Tom Gray removed his holographic disguise for the first time in 15 years. He stood in the central communications hub of the Imperial Palace, surrounded by stunned alien workers who had known him as Senior Controller Bright. His real form, a tall human with graying hair, was something none of them had seen before. "For generations, your people have served the Empire," he said to the gathered workers. "Today, that changes. We're here to help you take back your freedom." Across the Empire's 1,000 worlds, similar scenes played out. Human agents who had lived among the Empire's subjugated species revealed themselves. They had spent years building trust, forming connections, and preparing for this moment. In the mining worlds of the Outer Ring, the workers who had suffered under harsh Imperial rule found weapon caches mysteriously appearing in their quarters. On trade worlds, merchant ships that had secretly been human vessels began distributing supplies to resistance groups. "The communications network is ours," Tom reported through his secure quantum link. Every suppressed species in the Empire can now hear the truth. The truth spread like wildfire. Holographic broadcasts showed the defeat of the Imperial fleet at Earth, the emergence of human colonies, and most importantly, proof of the Empire's centuries of lies. Records of exploitation, proof of corruption, and evidence of systematic oppression, all carefully gathered by human agents over decades, were made public. On the desert world of Ring 7, the reptilian mineworkers, who had been told they were too primitive to govern themselves, rose up against their overseers. Human agents provided them with advanced shields that could stop Imperial weapons, evening the odds. The crystal beings of the star clouds, who had been forced to serve as living computer systems, received code from human hackers that broke their programming chains. They turned their vast processing power against their former masters, shutting down Imperial systems across entire sectors. The Empire is trying to respond, Tom's second-in-command reported. But their communications are in chaos. Every security code, every encrypted channel, every secret frequency. We've known them all for years. In the Imperial High Council chamber, panic spread as reports flooded in. Their subject species weren't just revolting. They were doing so with advanced weapons, organized strategies, and inside knowledge of Imperial defenses. Centuries of careful control were unraveling in hours. Multiple Imperial governors are surrendering to local resistance groups. Tom announced to Earth Command, "Our agents are ensuring peaceful transitions where possible. The Empire's hold is breaking." Admiral Reed's voice came through the quantum link. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. How are the civilian populations responding?" Tom looked at his displays showing scenes from across the Empire. "Better than expected, sir. The subject species are following the guidelines our agents gave them, focusing on military and government targets, protecting civilian lives. Generations of preparation are paying off." In orbit around countless worlds, Imperial warships found themselves confronted not just by human vessels, but by their own civilian ships piloted by revolting crews. Space stations vital to Imperial control were captured from within by workers who had secretly trained for years under human guidance. "Phase 3 is proceeding ahead of schedule," Tom reported. "The Empire's infrastructure is compromised. Their loyalist forces are isolated. Their command structure is broken." He watched as another sector declared itself free of Imperial rule. The revolution wasn't being led by humans. They were simply providing the tools and support that oppressed species needed to free themselves. "Send word to all agents," Tom ordered. "Begin the transition to Phase 4. It's time to show the Empire's people what real freedom looks like." The Empire had spent centuries believing they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Now they were learning that humanity hadn't just surpassed them technologically. They had outmaneuvered them completely, turning their own system against them. The Imperial Palace's Grand Hall had never been so quiet. Where once only the highest nobles of the Empire could walk, now representatives of every species in the galaxy gathered. Admiral Reed stood at the center, his simple Earth uniform a stark contrast to the ornate architecture around him. The remaining Imperial Council members sat in their carved chairs, stripped of their usual grandeur. Before them stood the proof of their civilization's failure: recordings, documents, and testimony showing centuries of exploitation and cruelty. "Your empire is finished," Reed announced, his voice carrying through the hall. "But humanity isn't here to replace one tyranny with another. We're here to build something better." He activated a holographic display showing a new map of the galaxy, not divided into Imperial sectors and slave worlds, but showing free territories and independent systems, all connected by new quantum communication networks that humanity had already begun installing. "For 2 centuries, we prepared for this moment," Reed continued, "not just with weapons and ships, but with plans for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. While we studied how to defeat you, we also learned how to help rebuild." From the crowd, Ambassador Val stepped forward. He had seen enough in the past weeks to understand the truth. "You could have destroyed us completely. Your weapons, your technology. We were defenseless. Why show mercy?" Reed smiled slightly. Because that's the difference between your empire and humanity. You see power as a right to rule. We see it as a responsibility to help. Look around this room. Every species here has something unique to offer. Together, we can build something greater than any single civilization. The holographic display shifted, showing the new Galactic Federation's charter. It guaranteed rights for all sentient species, protected cultural independence, and established a council where every world would have a voice. Commander Maria West, speaking from the Haven colony, reported through the quantum network. The transition is proceeding peacefully across all sectors. Former imperial worlds are holding their first free elections. Our colonial bases are being converted into training centers and trade hubs. Lieutenant Tom Gray, now coordinating from the former Imperial Communications Center, added his report. The new quantum communication network is online. Every world, no matter how small, now has a direct voice in the Federation Council. Reed looked at the Imperial Council members. You have a choice. Join us as equals. Share your knowledge and culture. Help build this new federation. Or remain isolated, trapped by your own outdated beliefs. The former Empire's worlds were already changing. Human medical technology was curing diseases that had plagued subject species for generations. Educational programs were bringing knowledge that had been deliberately withheld. Trade routes were opening between formerly separated worlds. Humanity spent centuries watching your empire, Reed explained. We saw its strengths and its flaws. We learned from both. The Federation we're building takes the best of what you created. Your organization, your infrastructure, your knowledge, and combines it with something you forgot. Compassion. A former imperial governor stood up. And if we refuse to join your federation, then don't join, Reed replied simply. Any world that wants to remain independent can do so. We're not here to force anyone to join us. That was your way, not ours. The hall erupted in discussion as representatives realized the truth. Humanity had not come as conquerors, but as liberators. They had spent generations preparing not just to defeat the Empire, but to replace it with something that would last. The age of empires is over, Reed declared. The age of cooperation begins. Every world, every species, every individual now has the chance to reach their full potential. That's what humanity spent 200 years fighting for, not to rule the galaxy, but to free it. As the delegates began discussing the details of the new federation, Reed looked out at the gathered species. Humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from their superior weapons or technology. It had come from remembering something the Empire had forgotten long ago. True power comes not from controlling others, but from helping them grow.